Hi, I'm Maurice Jones, President of Graceland Ministries. Today, we're going to talk about the virgin birth of Christ, okay, or Jesus, okay? Now, we're going to do this the right way, okay? We're not going to do it the way the secular people want to do it, or the way you have always seen it on TV or in the movies, okay? We're going to hit this thing the right way. And so what I mean by that is this: when you're talking about the virgin birth of Jesus, you cannot start with Luke chapter 2, okay, with the census of Quirinius. You cannot do it. You see, Christopher Hitchens, he's an atheist, he debates William Lane Craig, and he brings this up about the story about, the Christians invented some census to get Jesus from Nazareth to, Bethlehem. And so, but you can't start there. If you start talking about the virgin birth of Jesus in Luke chapter 2, then you're going to come to the conclusion that the event is not real. The event is supernatural, but it's not historical, I should say. Okay? It's just something that we made up. Okay? So you can't start there. When you're dealing with the virgin birth of Christ, you have to go back to the internew testamental period. Okay? Now, the best thing about the Bible is that you guys know about that 400 years of silence between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Okay? So that's good. I'm so glad God did that. I'm so glad that the Old Testament, ends, about 400 some years before Jesus comes on the scene in Mark chapter 1 and says he's talking about the kingdom of God, things of that sort. That's so good. And I'm going to tell you the reason for that in a minute. Okay? But right now, I want to say this. I want to use a story. Okay? Now, at Graceland Ministries, we always laugh when people tell stories, because we know that stories are like when people try to manipulate you. They try to get you to do something. But I'm not going to tell you a story. This is true. But I have to tell you about an event, something that occurred. Okay, with me, it's true. I have to tell you that so you can understand why it's so important to not start talking about the virgin birth in the book of Luke, but you got to go to the internew testamental period. Okay, so this is a true story, true event. Okay, and I'm not telling you this to try to make myself sound smart or to make you, feel guilty or what have you, but this is something you need to hear. Okay, I had a job with this company. And the guy who was running the company, he also had another job at a major Christian university. He was like a web guy, okay? And one day when I was at that job, I was on my lunch break. So I went to this Christian university to do some research, okay? And so I was upstairs and I was doing some research, and my boss, who was at his other job at the Christian university, came over to me, and I didn't know exactly, where his office was or where he was. I was just doing research. He walks over to me and he says, "What are you doing here?" And being a man, you're like, what's it to you? I didn't say that to him, but I'm here, I'm on my lunch break, and I'm doing some research. He goes, No. He goes, "No, why are you here?" And I'm like, "Huh?" He goes, "As long as I've been working at this university," he says, "no one has ever come to this part of the library. My office is right over there." He goes, "I've never seen anyone in this section of the library." Now, that section I was in was the internew testamental period part of the library. And I was shocked. I'm like, "No one comes up here?" He goes, No one. No professors, no students, no one comes to this section of the library. Now, I'm telling you that story because of this. Once again, it's sad because Christians don't know much about what occurred during the internew testamental period. Okay? And so since Christians don't know that, here comes the liberals. They want to start the story in the book of Luke. Okay? They don't want to start the story in the internew testamental period. You see, the thing about liberals and biblical critics and things of that sort, like we said in one of our other videos, is this. They know they can't, really attack in the Old Testament what is written, the Bible prophecies and all, okay? All right. So what they do is they try to control the time in which the events occurred. For example, prophecies are linear. So when Daniel says this is going to happen, okay, and if the event occurs, the liberal is going to say, oh, no, Daniel didn't prophesy that, okay, but rather the event occurred and some other guy who calls himself Daniel wrote that, so that when you read it, you think that event was prophesied and was fulfilled. And they do that with Isaiah and some of the other prophets. That's why you have, different types of Isaiahs writing the book of Isaiah, different Daniels writing Daniels, okay? So that's what liberals do. If something is fulfilled, they go, oh, no, it's not a fulfilled prophecy. Some other guy wrote this down after the event occurred. Now, the beauty of the Bible is this. You can only do that for so long, okay? Because when it comes to a prophecy and events, coming true, you can only do that to a certain limit. Because it doesn't matter if Daniel wrote something in 606 BC, which he didn't, but whether he wrote something in 606 BC or if he wrote something, or someone else, I should say, wrote something in 330 BC. Okay? If they prophesied about an event that would come after 330, let's say Daniel prophesies about an event that will occur in 168 BC. Okay? It doesn't matter whether Daniel wrote that prophecy in 606 or if some other guy claiming to be Daniel wrote that prophecy in 306. Okay? Because it doesn't matter whether it's 300 years or 600 years or 500 years or what have you. My point is this. Liberals try to say things like, the prophecies in the Bible are not true because they want to affect the dates of the biblical events in the Bible. That's the first thing they want to do. They want to control that because they want to neutralize Bible prophecy. But because the Bible has that 400-year gap in between Malachi or 2 Chronicles, whichever one you want to say is the last book of the Bible, it depends on whether Israel repented or not, okay? And the start of the Gospels there, that 400 years of silence there is awesome because now people can't play around with Bible prophecy. Okay? Now I know that's hard for you to understand, and I'm not in a classroom. I wish I was in a classroom and I can teach this to you, but it's a quick video we're making. We're just making a promotional video about the virgin birth of Christ. So we're not going into great detail, and I wish I could. But my point is this, okay? If you're going to talk about the virgin birth of Christ, okay, you cannot start with Luke chapter 2 and say that Christians invented some story about, you can't do that. Okay? Because when you go to Luke chapter 2, it talks about Caesar Augustus. The question you should be asking the liberal is, who was Caesar Augustus? And why is Caesar Augustus there? Okay? And you should ask the liberal, who is Herod the Great? And why is Herod the Great there? Okay? Because let me tell you something. Process theologians, they say this. I know I do a lot of talking about process theology. I don't like it. I don't follow it. But I read a lot of it. Okay? Because a process guy tries to stand in between atheism and classical theism. Okay? But one thing, and once again, of all the process guys, I kind of like Lewis Ford better than Cobb, better than Ogden, and some of those other guys. But Ford says this. Ford says that the Bible is like contingent history. Okay? It's just a biblical recital, contingent events. Okay? And what he is saying is this, that these events are not necessary. So when you're reading the Bible, for example, the Bible starts off with what? Cain and Abel, for example. Okay, you got Adam is born, he has two sons, Cain and Abel. Cain kills Abel. So now you just got Cain, and then here comes Seth. So now you got two sons. And so now you have, Cain, the lineage of Cain, the lineage of Seth. Okay? And then from Seth, you're going to come all the way down, and you're going to get Noah. And then from Noah, you're going to get his 3 sons. And from Noah's 3 sons, okay, you're going to get Shem. And then from Shem, you're going to get Abraham. So you see the contingency there. You see how you got these things and one thing departs and another one sticks out. So when you read in the Bible, you know, the next thing you know, you have moved from Adam all the way down to Shem, all the way down to Abraham. Now, Abraham is going to have Isaac, okay? And Isaac is going to have twins. He's going to have Jacob and Esau, okay? And so when Isaac has Jacob and Esau, now you're going to see the contingency, okay? You know the story about how Jacob, you know, deceives his brother and he gets the birthright. So now Edom, or I should say Esau, is now eliminated because Jacob is now going to have 12 sons. Okay? And so now we talked about this in one of our other videos, how that when Melchizedek met Abraham, he blessed Abraham. And when he blessed Abraham, he blessed Isaac and he blessed Jacob and he blessed Levi. So of those 12 sons, you get to see Levi. Okay? And so now you have Jacob and Esau. So Esau is going to be out of the picture because Jacob is going to take over. Okay? And Jacob's descendants are going to go down into Egypt. Okay? They're going to be enslaved by the Egyptians. Okay? And so the Bible's not going to mention Esau for a while. Okay? So now Israel is in slavery. Israel comes out of slavery. Okay? And when Israel comes out of slavery, they have to go and they have to take over. They have to conquer the promised land. They have to go into Canaan. Okay, and of course you know the story about Balaam in the book of Numbers. Okay, and so Balaam is going to make some prophecies, and one of the prophecies that Balaam makes is about the Edomites or the descendants of Esau. So my whole point is this. When you're dealing with the virgin birth, you're going to have 3 things. Number 1, you're going to have the Romans involved in this story, okay, with Caesar Augustus. You're going to have Herod the Great, who is an Edomite, a descendant of Esau. And you're going to have Mary and Joseph, who are descendants from Jacob, okay, all the way back to Abraham. So you're going to have Jewish people, you're going to have Edomites, and you're going to have Gentiles like the Romans. So these 3 types of individuals, they intertwine. Okay? Now, Lewis Ford is right because Ford says when you read the Bible, you see that contingency. So why is it Jacob over Esau? Why is it Judah over the other 12 sons? Or why is it Levi in the priesthood over the other sons? Because you have that contingency. Now watch this. I'm going to argue, okay, and Christians are going to argue that same contingency occurs within world history as well. That the same God who controls those biblical contingencies, okay, controls human history. So there is no coincidence that Caesar Augustus is reigning now instead of Antony and Cleopatra. It is no coincidence that Herod the Great is now ruling as king of the Jews. Okay? So when you start off your story in Luke chapter 2, you just want to jump there and go, hey, you got to explain this census. You got to explain this. There's nothing written in Roman history about this. Dude, you don't start there. As a liberal, as a skeptic, as an unbeliever, if you want to be an unbeliever, then you need to answer these questions. You need to say, how in the world, or why do we have Caesar Augustus? Why do we have this guy called Herod the Great? Because look, I'm going to tell you something. The whole virgin birth narrative, the whole virgin birth story makes no sense. When you read the whole Bible, it makes no sense if you don't have the Romans and the Edomites. Reading that story without Roman history and Edomite history, you're going to miss the point. And you're going to end up getting what you put into it. You're going to end up getting some natural event where God is not a part of it, some event with symbols, and that's why we do this and blah, blah, blah. Okay? So now we have to go back to the internew testamental period because that's when everything starts. That's when this whole narrative about the Messiah is starting to come down to an end. Now Jesus can be born. Now you have the fullness of time. But the same God who sat there and controlled, we did a study on genealogies on one of our other videos. We did a study on that. The same God that controlled the southern dynasty, okay, the lineage of David all the way down, the same God that controlled that, he let the northern side go. Okay? He just made sure that the northern side with Athaliah didn't come over there and take over the southern side. But he controlled that dynasty of David. Okay? And that same God is going to make sure that Caesar Augustus is there. He's going to make sure that Herod the Great is there. He's going to make sure that once Jesus is born, he's going to go to Egypt. Okay? Because Herod the Great is going to die. So if you're going to start the story about the virgin birth of Jesus, you have to start it right where Matthew does it. Okay? So, let's go back again. The people of the Edomites, when the nation of Israel came out of captivity, came out of slavery, they didn't help their brothers. Okay? They did not help Israel when Israel was in trouble. Okay? And so God is going to use Balaam, and Balaam is going to make this prophecy. Okay? This is about almost 1,400 years before Christ was even born. Balaam is going to write this prophecy, and he says this. If you turn to Numbers chapter 24, starting with let's start with verse 15. Then he proclaimed this poem. He says, the oracle of Balaam, son of Beor, the oracle of the man whose eyes are opened, the oracle of the one who hears the sayings of God and has knowledge from the Most High, who sees a vision from the Almighty, who falls into a trance with his eyes uncovered. Now watch what he says. He goes, I see him, but not now. I perceive him, but not near. Watch what he says. A star will come from Jacob, okay? And a scepter will rise from Israel. And he goes on to say he's going to smash the forehead of Moab. And then when you get to verse 18, he says, Edom will become a possession. Syria will become a possession of its enemies, but Israel will be triumphant. So right off the bat, you see almost 1,400 years before the virgin birth even occurs, you see Balaam making a prophecy, and Balaam's prophecy is this, that he sees a star, and he sees him. Who's that he? That him. That him is Shiloh, the one that we talked about in other videos, the one, that king whose vestures are dipped in grapes or in blood, according to Revelation chapter 19, verse 11. So, okay, so what Balaam is saying is, he sees the Messiah. And the Messiah is going to destroy Edom. Okay, he's going to be there against Edom. And so Herod the Great is an Edomite. Okay, so once again, here's the beauty of what I'm trying to say. This is so good. Okay, you're going to like this. You can no longer bifurcate between the Romans as being about natural history and true history, and now Bible history is being supernatural. Okay? Something that we all is just a faith thing we believe in. But there's that real Roman history and that faith history. You can't do that because of the Edomites. Because the Edomites have their foot in both worlds. You see the Edomites in the Old Testament, along with Israel, along with the Almighty God. You see Israel, and you see the Edomites with Israel, and you see the Edomites with the Romans in natural history. So you can't make that division that everyone wants to make between, a supernatural history and a natural history, or as C.H. Dodd says, you got that secular history and that sacred history. No. Two don't dovetail. You got the Edomites, and the Edomites got a foot in one world, they got a foot in the other world. So if you're going to accept what the Edomites say in the New Testament or in the internew testamental period, then you got to accept what the Edomites say or do in the Old Testament. Why is that important? Because of this. Now, when you study New Testamental history, you know about Julius Caesar, and you know about Mark Antony and Cleopatra, and you know that Antony and Octavian, they fought against each other, and we know that Octavian won. Okay? Now, when Octavian won, Herod the Great chose the wrong side. Herod the Great was on the side of Antony. So that Herod that we're going to read about, that Matthew's going to tell us how the virgin birth of Christ occurs when he dies, that Herod that we're going to read about, okay, is going to make a statement. Okay? A very important statement that you need to know about, because he was on Antony's side, okay? And when Antony lost, he had to go to Octavian, okay? And he had to prove to Octavian that, hey, I was a friend of Antony. Hey, I can be your friend too. And here's what he said. Here's what Herod the Great said, okay? This is before Christ was born, okay? This is a real historical guy talking to another real historical guy. Josephus tells us that Herod the Great said this. He said, I tried to tell Antony what to do. I said, Antony, if you want to get out of this thing, you have to kill Cleopatra. But Antony wouldn't do it. Okay? And Herod said this. He said, I tried to tell him, but he wouldn't listen because his love for Cleopatra, it just stopped up his ears. And he said this. And he said, God himself wouldn't let him listen. Enter New Testamental history. Dude, the staff is going wild now, okay? Because they understand what's going on. Herod the Great himself said that God stopped, okay? God stopped Antony's ears so that you are here today, Octavian, because I told him what to do. And you know how good I am, okay? And Octavian said, you know what, man? He says, because you came to me as my friend first, I'm gonna let you do it. So who is Octavian? Octavian changed his name to Caesar Augustus. And that's the guy who was ruling when Jesus was born. You see, who do you think controlled the events of human history to get you to Herod the Great and to get you to Octavian? Because Herod the Great wasn't supposed to be ruling. But what? God made sure that the Edomites lived until the time of Shiloh, until the time Jesus was born, before he dealt with them. Because God says this. Turn with me to Obadiah. Turn with me to the book of Obadiah. Obadiah says this. Obadiah says, in verse 18 it says, then the house of Jacob will be a blazing fire, and the house of Joseph a burning flame. But the house of Esau will be stubble. They will set them on fire and consume them. Therefore, no survivor will remain of the house of Esau, for the Lord has spoken. 800 years. Okay, because I believe in the older Obadiah date. 800 years before Jesus was born, God says, I am going to consume them. But he kept those rascals in existence until Jesus was born. Octavian could have killed Herod the Great, or could have pushed Herod the Great aside. Because you had another group of people called the Hasmoneans, who the Jews didn't respect because, okay, they were not true descendants of David. Okay? So now you know about the Hasmoneans. Now you can go look this up online or go, history class. Some of you guys know this stuff, some of you guys don't. A lot of good stuff out there on it. Okay? But now you know you got the Hasmoneans, you now got the Edomites, and now you got the Romans. Okay? Because the Hasmoneans, they put Herod on the run. Herod had to flee. Okay? But God saved Herod, and he saved the Edomite family so that Herod can have a dynasty, so that Jesus can be born, so they can be killed. God controlled that. He said it himself. God himself stopped Antony's ears so you can be here, Octavian. So atheists, you got to explain that. The contingency of world history. Okay? And so now that king is going to be born and Herod is going to be stressed. So now, I'm going to close up this section with this. When we pick up the story about the virgin birth of Jesus, you have to start in Luke 1:5 through 17 with the birth of John the Baptist, because John's dad, Zacharias, was a priest. But notice this: Hasmonean rule, Edomite rule. Who was ruling the priesthood at that time? It wasn't the Levites. Okay? Who had the priesthood before Jesus was born? So you have to start the story off with John the Baptist. John the Baptist and Zacharias, it's not some story just thrown in there. Okay? Historically, it has to be there, because we have to find out that the Levites were not in control of the priesthood at the time. And we're going to see that from the story of Zechariah. We're going to see that in the birth of John the Baptist. Also, biblically, we're going to see that John the Baptist is going to have to end that eschatological stage. From Abraham to John the Baptist is going to have to end, so that that close link between John the Baptist and Pentecost has to be there, and it has to start with what I call core fact B, which is the crucifixion of Jesus. So when we come back and do the next part, we're going to pick up with the story of John the Baptist. We're not going to be like the liberals and start in Luke chapter 2. Okay, we're going to start Luke chapter 1, verse 5, the way we're supposed to start.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this content and would like to see more from Graceland Ministries, please subscribe, share, and support us financially online using the links in the description.